Let's try again. My name's Brad Grossman, for those of you who are new, and I'm here to be your Zeitguide, as I've been since mid-March. Zeitguide is the name of my company as well, and what we do is guide you through the zeitgeist. And if you don't know what zeitgeist means and you just think of it as like a big buzzword, it is a word from Germany, a German word, just getting a little bit more set up here too, that means spirit of the times. Spirit of the times. Geist, spirit, Zeit, time. So I am so excited that you are all here because I'm back. As you know, I did culture classes for free, which I do for my clients from mid-March, right after stay-at-home orders, to mid-August, and now I'm here again for this like one-off special class. And if you want to stay with me, I do these for clients, for organizations who want to stay up to speed and inspired to reinvent the future, because my God, we have to reinvent the future. It's like horrible now. But I'm here to inspire you. And I also have a premium class where anybody could join. And I do these small workshops on a weekly basis. So I hope those of you who have been loving culture class, you can join me in the future after this class. But we're just going to get started today because we're going to have an amazing class. It's going to teach us so much. We're going to first learn from Princess Lockaroo. And she was just in the New York Times, literally, last week. So how zeitgeisty is that? And she is the premier expert and performer of the art form whacking, which was born in the 1970s during the show Soul Train. And the reason why it's so culturally significant today is because on TikTok, which I've taught you so much about TikTok, and obviously it's still part of the major zeitgeisty conversation, it's been proselytized, not just by Samara, but thousands and thousands of people. And it started in the 70s, and it was created by the Black community. A lot of them were gay, and there are theories, but Samara's gonna, basically tell me if I'm correct or wrong, fizzled out when many of those dancers died during the AIDS epidemic. And I find it relevant for two reasons. One, we are in the middle of a pandemic and what's going to happen for our culture moving forward. And two, it was the first time that Black people were represented positively with freedom and energy and love to a mass audience on television. Before, they were represented as like thugs and robbers and criminals and, not a positive representation. So Samara, we're going to get to you. We're going to learn from you. You are a zeitgeisty kind of person, and I'm feeling like we got you right when you're budding. So think of this as a test run before you get all over the talk shows. So, and then we're going to have Michael Garner, who's the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer of the MTA. So if you're in New York and you ride the subway, or you ride the bus, or you take the train, and there are other things that we're going to learn from Michael, then we're going to learn how to do it safely today. And if you're not from New York, whatever he's doing amazingly. And hopefully you can learn from him to adopt what he's doing while you're in the other areas of the world. So what happens before all that? I do a little zeitguiding. So this is the stuff I'm thinking about today. So I'm going to share my screen. And we don't want to see my email, but we want to see this. This is my first screen, always, and it tells you how I granulate and think about and curate and compartmentalize all the things I feel that we need to know in terms of a synthesis. And my job is to help you because there's so much information out there. There's so much misinformation out there. Many of you don't have any time to figure out what's going on. And this is my job. People have called me the cultural DJ, which I think is funny and people love it. Probably not the the straight-laced executive audience, because I don't know if that could sell me into their organizations. But those of you who are creative, that's what I do, because just like a DJ goes through records, going through websites. So you're a cultural DJ. And when I'm looking at the world of ideas, I bucketize them in four big pillars of change. So we got global trends and societal issues. I talk about emerging tech and how it's impacting business and society, consumer trends, how they're constantly evolving, and where work is going. And when I'm talking about these things, I just don't want you to say, oh, okay, let's take notes. This is interesting. My job isn't just to do that. I'm not another news source for you. My job is to provoke your thinking and say to yourself, what did I learn? Why is it relevant to me? What can and what should I do about these learnings? And then ask yourself, how can you integrate these trends into your own business practices, strategies, decision-making, and life? And so when you leave culture class, go back to your teams and say, wow, we need to do this. If you do that, then I am successful, and I'll make myself really, and you'll make me really, really happy. So as you know, those of you who have been with me in the beginning, I always have, and I'm going to just scroll through these, a weekly theme of what I'm thinking about. And unfortunately, this is like a never-ending story. So July, August 12th, September. I hope you're not having any flashbacks, nightmares. But today is September 24th. And I'm going to go through some of these things very quickly because we can't wait to hear from our Zeitguists. So theme number one. I've been talking about COVID since March 18th as a 3-act movie. So those of you who don't know how movies work, because you're not a cinephile, nerd, crazy person who's so devastated that nobody watches movies but just watches binge-watching television shows, because movies are great. Why wouldn't you watch a movie? I mean, it's 2 hours and then you're done. Now I have to spend, I don't know, a whole month watching a TV show. So an Act 3 movie. It starts with Act 1. Act 1 was March to May. March, April, May. And that's when we were introduced to our characters. In this case, the villain was COVID. Act 2 was the next 3 months. It was the summer. And that in a movie basically is when the plot rises. And usually a good movie has like so many different textures to it and so many different storylines. And as we know, the end of May, there was a dagger thrown into the story of us trying to get over COVID and survive with a happy ending. And we had George Floyd's death. We had other things, wildfires, earthquakes, so many things that are just unfathomable. And this is, I'm thinking, the third act. Hopefully we'll have a happy ending. Hopefully we'll get that, I'm not going to say any, maybe I could, that fucker out of office. And all the stuff that we have been so devastated by will hopefully turn into a happy ending. We'll get a vaccine, all that stuff. But there is a chance, as we know, of having a sequel. And in this case, the sequel would be another outbreak or a second wave. So that's theme number one. I just talked about all the shit that's plaguing our world right now. And a friend of mine named Jesse Kernan of the firm We Are Rosie compared it to the 10 plagues of Passover. For those of you who aren't Jewish and celebrate Passover, Passover is the holiday that celebrates the freedom of the Jews from Egypt. And when the Pharaoh wouldn't let Moses's people go, God, through Moses, created all these plagues to really scare them. And, there were boils and locusts, which, by the way, India is having a horrible problem right now with locusts. And it ended with the death of the firstborn. So it's making her feel like this. And, that's the thing. Having these scary feelings should basically tell us that something is happening in the world where there's a higher power, and I believe in a higher power. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, is telling us something. We're doing something wrong, and we have to change. We have to reboot humanity. The next theme I'm thinking about is comparing Russia, China, and Iran to the Axis powers, or from their point of view, probably the Allied powers. If you were a studier of World War II, which I think many of us were, the Axis powers were the villains: Germany, Japan, and fascist Italy. And the Allied powers were the US, Great Britain, France, and Russia, and China, actually. I don't even know if you know that, but now, which is where we are right now in the middle of the General Assembly for the UN, we are seeing all this, and I'm going to rush through. Russia, China, and Iran hackers are targeting Trump and Biden. This is what Microsoft says. We know China, Russia, and Iran are sending spies to steal coronavirus vaccine research. Just yesterday, because of the General Assembly, China's Xi, Russia's Putin are pushing back at Trump during virtual gathering of the UN General Assembly. And we've been covering TikTok, and the saga continues. Trump wants to ban it. He demanded that ByteDance, which is a Chinese company, which actually has a lot of American investors, sell to an American company. And Oracle with Walmart are going to invest, and hopefully that'll make Trump basically enable this continuation of TikTok. But if it doesn't go through, people are going to be devastated. The Gen Zs are going to be devastated. And basically, this is from the China Daily, which is a newspaper there, or a digital paper and digital newspaper there. And they're basically had this political cartoon, just to give you perspective of the other side, saying that decoupling from China is a pipe dream. Trump wants to decouple ourselves from China. And by the way, I'm giving you an American perspective. So if you're not from America, obviously, I'm sure you're seeing this in your own point of view, which is a good time. I love doing this. Everybody put in chat where you're from. I love seeing where everybody's from. Second big theme I'm thinking about is that misinformation is a huge problem. It's going to be a problem in the election. It's scary, but I'm going to show you the dark side, and I'm going to show you the light side. The dark side is that, as the World Health Organization said, is even worse than the pandemic, is what they're calling the infodemic. And if you haven't heard of QAnon, and by the way, only 3% supposedly of Americans know what QAnon is, but that's rising in power. And there's a conspiracy theory, basically, where they believe, and if you don't know, this is crazy, that they are an internet conspiracy theory whose followers believe that a cabal of Satan-worshiping Democrats, Hollywood celebrities, and billionaires are running the world while engaging in pedophilia, human trafficking, and the harvesting of supposedly life-extending chemicals from the blood of abused children. So they're proselytizing this theory and recruiting people. In fact, there are 2 representatives who might come into office who are QAnon supporters. So this is crazy. And then on the other side, though, is that Gen Zs are eroding the power of misinformation, which is actually kind of cool. 69% of Gen Z students said it's somewhat or very easy for them to distinguish real news from misinformation, and half said that they think it is very difficult for older generations. So if you think that your kids are just spending all their time on TikTok doing stupid dances and memes, they're actually gaming the system to make sure that the world becomes a better place. I'm sure many of you already know that the Gen Z's impact of how we're moving forward in terms of this election is that they got all these Gen Zs on TikTok to sign up for the Trump rally, and they thought millions of people were going to be there, and actually, I don't know, 4 people showed up. I'm just exaggerating, but they're awesome. They were instrumental in getting people to support Black Lives Matters. They basically they told everybody to create a campaign to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. Unfortunately, they weren't completely successful. They know how to use TikTok to get people to sign up on Making America Great website and take away basically buy stuff, put it in the cart, and then not buy it. Where all these Make America Great people have to spend all this money to say, oh, your cart is full and why don't you buy it? So they have been doing a lot of things in terms of the misinformation as well. And I got to say, Gen Z is our hope. They are the best equipped generation of the future. They are struggling right now, but this is going to create such resilience. Even those who are in college right now and aren't happy how things are going are not allowed to live in college, but they are living what these authors or these officers are calling, or these journalists are calling off campus housing. So they're living together and trying to support each other and prevent themselves from getting the novel coronavirus. This was a piece that was just sent out on Spotify advertising. And they are basically showing how the generation after their research is going to be known for creation. And 62% of Gen Z said their generation is ready to rebuild society from the ground up. And they plan to be, or already are, their own bosses. I don't really have time to show this, but even in the China Daily, actually, you know what? I'll just show a couple things. We want to keep learning. They showed at UN at 75, which is the General Assembly, the youth's global view of where society is going and what they want. Not surprisingly, they don't have any Americans here, but they did profile people from around the world.
The biggest challenge the United Nations is facing now is climate change and its effects.
The world is experiencing a threat towards multilateralism.
COVID, the lack of understanding among different cultures, and the inequality women are facing.
Climate change and inequalities must be the two biggest challenges that the UN is facing today.
There's more to that, but I kind of thought it was interesting that that was from the China Daily, and you see Gen Zs from all over the world, or the youth and millennials, really having the urge and the desire and the power to actually change the world to make it a positive place. I've been talking about the new domesticity back in the 18th century, when domesticity was formed, when the man went to work in the city and the woman was the head of the household. But now we're seeing a conflation of the public space and private space. You are all working, we're in our homes, we're also having our private lives. And one of the things that is scary about it is that in terms of the movement of diversity and equality of women in society, women are spending an average of 15 more hours on domestic labor than men. And pre-pandemic, it was 35 versus 25. So this new domesticity is something to think about. And I'm going to end with some positivity. We are about to embark on a business and cultural renaissance. I know things are going to get better. I promise you. The Business Roundtable that's headed by Jamie Dimon just came out with this CEO economic outlook. And right here, which is the economic outlook, we are slowly rising, and hopefully it'll rise all the way up. And the other thing that I just want to end with this little spiel, and then we'll get going to the fun part, is that Lawrence Wright is telling us that we're about to embark in a cultural revolution, because the Black plagues during the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, evolved into the Renaissance, where we had so many amazing figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo that revolutionized art and thought and medicine and science and literature to where it is today. So hopefully, now that we're still quarantined and we get through the election, we live a happy ending, we will embark on the best cultural renaissance we've ever experienced before.